Hi, I'm Anita. Welcome to my channel. Today I'm going to be making a pair of earrings, and these are called mobile earrings. There's also a necklace that kind of goes along with the same style, and this is a pattern by a lady named Kelly Wiese from her book titled A Beaded Romance. And today we're going to be making the earrings, and there's also a necklace tutorial that will probably be coming up in the future. So here's what we're making today. I'll give you a quick peek. I made these in a pink palette color. As you can see, it's all brick stitch, and we're using Miyuki Delica in the 11-0, a little bit of chain, some bicone crystals, teardrops, and some 11-0 seed beads as well. These are all Miyuki beads. Very simple pair, and it's done in different stages. So we'll be going over the materials next to tell you exactly what you're going to need. And I'll have a link in the description box, or several links in the description box, with all the suppliers and where you can find some of these materials. Now, the pair I did in pink is all one color for the accent bead. In today's tutorial, I'm going to be doing a mix color. So you're going to need some 6-pound fireline, a couple of yards of that. I'm using size 12 beading needles. You're going to need a couple of flat nose pliers, and I also am using a pair of scissors to cut my fireline. And these are all the beads I'm using today. So we've got 11-0. This is kind of a light opaque blue. I also have some 11-0s in a capri blue, and also 11-0s in a galvanized gold. And then for my brick stitch, I'm using these Miyuki delicas. The color is called Aqua Crystal AB. You're going to need about 6 crystals. These are 4mm size, and I'm doing a mix. So I've got the capri blue, a light blue, and a gold for each earring. Thought that would be interesting to mix it up a little. And then I've got some little 15-0s. These are capri blue silver lined. And then I've got these teardrop crystals. These are very slender, 4 by 9mm, I believe, with the hole drilled down the center. Very pretty. You're also going to need a couple of inches of necklace chain. And this is a, I'm going to guess probably 1 by 2mm link chain you're going to need for your earrings, and also a couple of earring hooks. So go ahead and grab all your materials if you want to bead along with me, and we'll get started. All right, to get started, you're going to thread your needle with about a yard of 6-pound fireline, and we're going to leave about a 6-inch tail to weave in. So what you're going to do is you're going to start by picking up 2 of your delicas. So we're working with our delicas first. So you're going to bring that down, and we're going to bring our needle back through the first bead. So there's my 2 delicas. There's my tail thread on this side. I'm going to go back up through the first bead right there. You're just going to pull that together, and you want the beads to stack like that. So now I'm going to reinforce this by bringing my needle back down the bead on the right. Just hold on to your tail thread. Just pull that together. Now I'm going to bring my needle back up the bead on the left. And then back down the bead on the right. So just pinch and hold that together as you're pulling your needle through. So that's what you should have so far. Let's see if I can get this to focus, because I've got my beads in view. So we've got 2 beads stacked like that, and we're just going to add, doing a ladder stitch, we're going to add 5 more beads. So you're going to pick up another delica bead. We're exiting this bead here. We're going to go in through the top. Like that. Pull that together. And now you're going to bring your needle back through the outer bead. Right there. Pinch and pull your thread. That's what you should have. We're going to continue until we have a total of 7 beads. So we've got 5, we have 2 more beads to add. So you're going to pick that up one at a time, going under the bead we're exiting. Right there. Pull that together. Then bring your needle down the outer bead, like that. And add 1 more bead. Coming around the top. And then exiting out of the outer bead. So this is what you should have, a total of 7 beads, ladder stitch, very simple. And now we're going to be switching to brick stitch. So with brick stitch, every time you start a new row, you're going to pick up 2 delicas. So we're coming out of this last bead here, we're going to be picking up 2 delicas to start our brick stitch. So I've got 2 delicas on my needle, and we're going under the second thread bridge from where our thread is exiting. So my thread is exiting here. There's my first thread bridge, and this is my second thread bridge. Kind of hard to see, got too many shadows here. All right, there's our second thread bridge, and that's where you want your needle to go under. So I've got my 2 beads going under the second thread bridge. I'm just going to pinch my fingers as I pull that through to hold my work steady. You're going to pull those beads, and they're going to stack kind of funny, but you'll get them straightened out here shortly. So what we're going to do now is take our needle, go back up the last bead that we added, like that. Pinch and pull your work. Now we're going to go down the outer bead, right there. Pull that through. And now we're going to go back up the first bead where we started to straighten out our little brick stitch. So pinch and pull that together, and when you reinforce that, that's going to make the stacking look like that. So from here to the end, we're going to be adding 1 bead at a time. So you're going to pick up 1 delica, and we're going under the next thread bridge. It's a little awkward at first, so you just have to hold on to it the best you can. Bring your needle under that thread bridge and just kind of pinch and hold your work together as you're pulling that thread through to add that next bead. Now we're going to bring our needle back up that bead we added, right there. We'll pick up another bead, going under the next thread bridge, right there. Pinch and pull your work. Bring your needle back up that bead, And that's what it should look like. So we're going to add a couple more beads, take you to the end, picking up one delica, going under the next thread bridge, right there. Bring your needle back up the bead you added. And now we have one more bead to add, going under that last thread bridge. Right there. Just pinch and pull your work through. It'll get easier as you get more rows added. And now we're going to bring our needle back up through that last bead. Right there. Pinch and pull. That completes your second row of brick stitch. And as you can see, we are decreasing, so each row is going to be one bead less. So now we're going to come back this direction, and you're starting a new row, so you're picking up to start your row, going under the second thread bridge from where your thread is exiting. So there's one, there's two. Pull your thread, bring your needle back up through the last bead you added, and we're reinforcing. You do that at the beginning of each row. So now we're coming down the outer bead to the left, and then back up the bead that we started right there. And from here, you're going to continue adding single delicas till you get to the end. All right, I'm coming down to the last bead of this row, picking up my single delica, going under the last thread bridge. Now I'm going to bring my needle back up that last bead we added. Oops. Pinch your work and pull your thread. And that completes our third row. Starting the next row, picking up two. You're going under the second thread bridge. There's one, there's two. And you're reinforcing. So we're going down, back up, and then down the outer bead on the right to reinforce, and then back up the bead on the left. And you're going to continue adding single delicas till you get to the end. Continue adding rows until you have two delicas left at the top. And then we'll go on to our next step. I'm coming down to this last row where I've got 3 beads. I just picked up my last delica, coming up the bead I just added to complete that row. And I'm going to pick up 2 delicas. I'm exiting this far right bead, going under the second thread bridge. And this will be our last row for this end. Now we're going to bring our needle back through the bead on the left, come down the bead on the right, and reinforce, and come back up the bead on the left. And that should straighten out those last 2 beads. You might need to use your needle to get it to stack correctly. So that completes our little partial triangle. So you've got a total of 2, 3, 4, 6 rows. You're starting out with 7 beads and you're ending with 2. So you're going to make 2 of these half triangles. So go ahead and make sure that you have 2, and then we're going to go on to the next step. So for now, we're going to leave this thread attached here. And what we're going to do is we're going to weave this tail thread in. So go ahead and pop a needle on your tail thread, and I'll show you how to weave that in. Alright, so this is my working thread here at the top. We're going to leave that needle attached. This is my tail thread coming out of the point here to the left, and I've got another needle threaded on, and we're just going to flip this up so we can pass our needle through. And I'm not going to do any knots because brick stitch is pretty tight woven. I'm just going to bring my needle back through a few beads. It doesn't matter what direction you go. So I've gone through those first 2 beads. Now I'm going to come down these next 2 beads. There's no right or wrong way to do this, so whatever thread path you choose, we're just weaving the thread throughout so nothing's going to come undone. So I'm coming through these 2, and I'm going to do one more pass through these next 2 beads. Alright, I had a bit of a tangle there I had to get undone, so let's get back to where I left off. We were weaving in the tail thread, and I'm going to just come down these last 2 beads here. So I'm exiting next to the last bead, and it doesn't matter which way you go. As I said, we're going to cut this tail thread off now. So just be careful as you're cutting this that you're not accidentally cutting in between beads. So that completes this little piece here. So we're going to have to do a second one of these. So as you can see by our pink pair of earrings, this is the piece that's going to go at the top of our earring. So you have to have 2. Our next step, we're going to be making these little diamond shapes, and we have to do 6 of those. So we'll go on to that next phase, and then I'll show you how to put it all together. For the next step, you're going to thread a new needle with about 30 inches of thread. And we're going to start by picking up 2 of our delicas. Leave about a 4 to 6 inch tail to weave in. And like we did, we're going to go back through the first bead. Pull your thread. And you want to stack those. Now we're going to reinforce by going back through the bead on the right. Up the bead on the left, then back down the bead on the right. Now we're going to continue adding ladder stitch by adding 1 bead at a time until we have a total of 5 beads. So I'm exiting this bead here. I've got my delica on my needle, and I'm going to come down through the top of that bead. Now we're going to go back up through the bead we added. Pick up your next bead. Threads exiting at the top, so we're going in through the bottom. Now you're going to bring your needle down through the bead on the outer edge. Pick up 1 more delica, going down the top back up the bead you added last. So that's what you should have, is a total of 5 delicas ladder stitch. Now we're going to start brick stitch, and we're going to pick up 2 of our delicas, and we're going under the second thread bridge. There's 1, there's 2. Bring your needle back up the last bead you added. Come down the bead on the right to reinforce, and come back up the bead on the left. And continue adding single delicas until you get to the end, and you're going to continue doing brick stitch all the way to the top. And once you get to the end, I'll show you how to add that last bead. Alright, I've come to the next to the last row on the small diamond, so I'm picking up 2 of my delicas. I'm exiting this bead here. I'm going under the second thread bridge with my 2 delicas, reinforcing by going back up the last bead, down the bead on the right, back up the bead on the left. Now I'm going to pick up 1 last delica, exiting this bead here, bringing my needle back down the last bead on the right, and I'm going down through all 4 beads to complete that row. And that bead is just going to sit at the end, like that. Now I'm going to take my working thread, and I'm going to start doing brick stitch on this end. But before we do that, we want to take this tail thread, weave it in and cut it off, and then we'll go on to the next step. Okay, I have woven my tail thread in, cut that off. I am now on my working thread again, coming out of this end. I'm picking up 2 delicas, and we're doing the brick stitch going under the second thread bridge. And just like we did before, we're reinforcing this by going back up the last bead we added, down the outer bead on the right, back up the bead on the left to complete the reinforcing. And sometimes you have to straighten these beads out. Just get your needle back in there. You want those to stack nice and neat like that. So we're coming back this direction, and as we did before, we're going to continue adding 1 delica at a time under the next thread bridge until you get to the other end. And on the other end, we're going to stop after we've had 2 beads at the end. So continue doing brick stitch. Alright, so here's where we're at. We've got 3 beads. We're going to pick up our last 2 delicas to complete this row. Exiting the far right, going into the second thread bridge, and reinforce, going up the left, then down the bead on the right, then back up the bead on the left to complete this row. Pull that snug. So that's what your little diamond should look like. So you've got one bead ending at the end and two beads ending at this other end. So you're going to make a total of 6 of these little diamonds. So you want to make 5 more, and then we'll go on to the next step of assembling. Now that we have all of our components done, what I mentioned earlier is you need to make 2 of these half triangles and a total of 6 of these diamonds. And now I'm going to show you how to do the assembly on that. So we're going to start with the small diamond. So currently my working thread is coming out of these 2 beads at the top. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick up 3 of my delicas. So let me get those on my needle first. And you're going to do the same process on all 6 of your diamonds. So you're picking up 3 delicas, and then we're going to pick up our crystal, and I'm putting the 4mm crystal on next. Then I'm going to pick up an accent bead, and I'm going to use this dark blue for contrast, and then I'm going to put on my teardrop. So I'm putting my teardrop on this direction so that my needle is coming out of the rounder part at the bottom. And now I'm going to pick up 3 of my 11-ohs, and I did these in 3 different colors just to do an accent, and I'll show you what it's going to look like once we get the whole earring completed. So I've got my 3 delicas, my 4mm, an 11-oh, my teardrop, and 3 11-ohs. And if you wanted to do this all in one color, you could do that. I just thought I'd mix it up today, have some fun with these earrings. So now I'm going to bring my needle back through the teardrop. So I'm going to skip these 3 11-ohs, come back up through the teardrop, through the 11-oh, the 4mm, and I'm also going to come up through the 3 delicas. Now you notice that my thread is coming out of this delica here. I want to go into the one to the left. So I'm going to bring my needle up through. I'm going to go through all 4 beads. And just hold that together and pull your thread. And you want those 3 11-ohs to make a little picot at the bottom of your crystal, like that. So now I'm going to advance through a couple of more beads, like that. And I'm going to do a half hitch knot right here just to secure my little teardrop. So make sure there's no slack in your thread. I'm coming under a thread bridge, until I have a small loop, and I'll bring my needle back through that loop, just to give it a little extra security. And I'll pull that tight, make sure that knot falls in between your beads. Now I'm going to advance up through this next bead, and now I'm going to come through that top delica at the point, like that. So that's how you prepare your teardrop, just like that. You're going to do that with all 6. And I'm using 3 different colors. So I'll show you the other 2 I've already done. I did this one with a light blue crystal. And then I did the other one with the dark capri blue crystal. So I've got those 3 done. So now we're going to take our half triangle, and I'm going to work with this piece next. So I'm going to set my needle down for this teardrop, and we're going to start with this piece here, which is the half triangle. So right now my thread is exiting these 2 beads here at the top. I'm going to put on my earring hook. So here's where we're going to use our 15-0 seed beads. So you want to pick up 6 of your 15-0s, and I'm using the Silverline Capri Blue for that. And now I'm going to go through my ear wire. Make sure there's no opening there. It looks like it's closed pretty good. And now I'm going to bring my needle down through the left side like that. Pull that together. And that's how you fasten your earring hook. So I want to reinforce this about 3 times. So go ahead and do the reinforcing, and then I'll show you the next step. So now that that's reinforced, I'm going to bring my needle down through the outer rows next. From here, my thread is exiting that delica. I'm going to turn my work, and I'm just going to advance my needle through these next 5 beads right there. So you want your thread coming out of the last delica. Now we're going on to, for your next step, you're going to start attaching your chain. Now what I did with that 1-inch chain is I cut, because these were soldered links, so I've got 3 links. I cut 2 for each earring, and then I did 5 links, 1 for each earring. So there's my 3 and my 5. It's kind of hard to see. But what we're going to do is we're going to start by attaching the 3 links first. So I'm using chain. This is a necklace chain that has soldered edges. So if you can find that kind of chain, that's best, because you want to make sure that your thread isn't going to go through any openings. So I've got my needle going through the chain. I'm going to go through this next delica here and the one above it. Just like that, to attach my chain. And we're just doing you'd call it a circle stitch. So I'm going to reinforce that a couple of times, coming back through these 2 delicas here on the end. Pull that nice and tight. I'm going to go through the chain. And then up through these 2 delicas on the end, or the row right next to it, like that. And I'm going to reinforce that one more time. Come through the delicas, through the chain, and then back through the delicas. Now we're going to advance, and I want my needle coming out of the center delica. That's the 4th one from the end. So I'm just going to weave my needle through this next delica here and go at the diagonal to get to this delica here. That's where I want my needle coming out. And I'm going to attach the 5-link chain there. So pick up your 5-link chain. Grab that one. This one goes in the middle. So just make sure you're on the last link. I'm coming out of that fourth bead, and I'm going to come back up that bead and go to, on the diagonal, that delica right there. And just pull that through. And we're going to reinforce by coming through the delica to the right of where our thread is coming out, and then back through the delica that's connected to the chain. Like that. You're going to go through the chain and then back up the delica. And you're going to go on the diagonal just like you went that first round. We're just reinforcing this about 3 times. So I'll do that one more time. Coming on the diagonal, through the delica, going through these 2 beads. If your chain gets in the way, just kind of move it to the side. And I want to also go through the chain and then back through the delica. And if you can't go through 2 beads, you can go through 1 at a time. It gets a little tricky when you've got a lot of thread going through there. So we're just going to pass that through. And now I'm going to advance my needle through this next delica here, like that. Now I'm going to come up through the delica to the left, and then down the 2 on the outer edge, because I want to set up so my needle's coming out of that last delica. So just like we did on this side with these 3 here, we're going to attach this other 3 link chain to the far end of where the thread is coming out. So go ahead and do that, circle stitch 3 times, and then I'll show you the next step. Okay, here's what I have so far. I've reinforced that about 3 times. My thread is coming out of this delica here. I'm just going to advance through a few beads, and I'm going to tie a half hitch knot and just weave my thread in. So I'm just going through a couple of beads. I'll do a half hitch knot right here, coming underneath the thread bridge, forming a small loop, bringing my needle through, pull nice and tight, and then just weave your thread through a few more beads. Doesn't matter which way you go. I'm just going to come through these next 3 right there. Just make sure your thread doesn't get caught on anything. Pull nice and snug. And I'm going to cut this thread off right here. So that's what this piece should look like. Right here with your 3 chains. And then we're going to go on to the last step of attaching the dangles. Alright, now for our last step, we're going to be attaching these to the bottom of the chain. So if you recall, we have our working thread still attached, and our needle should be coming out of this top delica here. And all you're going to do is you're going to circle stitch to the chain on the other end. So I'm exiting this delica here. I'm just bringing my needle through the chain. Make sure you're on the last link. And we're going to come back through the delica, through the opposite side of where the thread is. Pull that together, and you're circle stitching the chain right to that last delica. So we're going to go back through the chain, back through the delica, and I'm going to do that about 4 times. So we'll do 2 more times through the chain, through the delica, a fireline is a very strong thread, but I like to give it extra security, and these earrings are going to last for decades. It will eliminate, give you peace of mind that you're not going to lose a drop. And so now that we've done that, we're just going to bring our thread up through these beads now. I'm coming up through all 4 of these beads, and I'm going to do another half hitch knot right here. Come under a thread bridge. Bring your needle through the loop. Try to get my loop so there's no kinks in it, because you want to make sure that your knot is sitting right in between those beads. So I'm just going to pull that tight, and I'm going to advance through some more beads, and then I'll cut my thread off. Very simple pair of earrings to do. It doesn't take a lot in the way of materials, but you can get real creative with what colors you want, what kind of color palette you want. So let your imagination go wild, and you'd be surprised with what you can come up with. So I'm just weaving my thread throughout the earring here, and I'm going to just go through a couple more beads and clip this thread off. Now, if you have any thread sticking out to where you didn't cut it short enough, you can use a thread burner to burn it off. And so that is how you do that. And here's a thread burner if you don't know what one looks like. This is a thread burner, and I'll use this on occasion. They run on a AA battery, and you just press that button and just lightly tap the end of your thread, and that will seal it up so that it's not showing if you have any that are sticking out. So that's how you attach your dangle to the chain, and you're going to do that for the other 2 components. So go ahead and attach the other 2, and then we will wrap this video up. All right, this concludes today's tutorial. Aren't these beautiful? Look how elegant those look. And if you didn't want the chain quite so long, you could do maybe 2 links on the outer edge and 3 links in the middle, or use shorter teardrops. Very flexible pattern. I hope you've enjoyed this video, and I want to thank you for joining me today. I'll have links in the description box below with all the products used in today's tutorial. I'll also include timestamps for each of the components, and as far as how to do the half triangle, the small triangle, and then the assembly. That way you can go straight to those timestamps if you need to review the process. I do have a website where I sell my own jewelry. You'll see the link to that as well, and these will be for sale on the website, and I do have another color of these that I did in pink. Very pretty. If you're not a subscriber, I hope that you do subscribe and hit that notification bell so that you're notified when I upload new videos. And thanks to those of you that have subscribed and commented on my videos. I really appreciate your return visits to watch and sharing the links. And I've hit my 500. I had a giveaway celebration, very generous to the lucky winner that won that contest. So keep watching, because when I hit 1,000 subscribers, I'll have another giveaway celebration for that once I hit the 1,000 mark. So keep watching and keep referring your friends, and I'll let you know when I hit that milestone, and we'll have another contest, And this time I'll let the winner pick their prizes. And I'm not going to tell you how many you get to pick, so you got to keep watching. All right, everybody, have a wonderful weekend. Happy week and happy beading. I'll see you next time.